Welcome to Dare a New Belief, a place to discover what is possible for your life after the loss of a loved one, and where you will find inspiration, insight, support, and love, and hopefully a bit of laughter to help you through your day. Now, here's your host, Nada Hogan.
Welcome to Dare a New Belief, where you will find light and life, love and joy, healing, faith, and hope. A place where you get to believe in what is possible for your life. And today I have the great honor to be with Judy Jonna. Judy is a certified energy touch practitioner and a sound vibration healer. She practices in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. Loving the work that Judy does, she also loves learning how the divine within us can help us heal our own bodies, souls, and spirits so that she can pass that on to her clients. I love that, Judy. Judy's passions are God, family, healing work, nature, and friends in that order. Although Judy's journey at healing started later in life, she has never looked back and couldn't be happier. To know herself through her own eyes rather than through the eyes of others has been an absolute gift to her, and so she continues down the road of self-discovery to learn all that the universe offers, which she, in turn, can use to teach and help others. Thank you so much, Judy, for being here. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Nada. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm thrilled. So, and reading your bio, I love your bio and this line, how you love learning how the divine within us can help us heal our own bodies, souls, and spirits. I love that, and we're going to delve into that, I'm sure, in this conversation. But to start it off, to kick it off, I met Judy in October of 2019. We were both at a Alchemy Crystal Singing Bowl training in California. And while we were there, Judy and I started talking, and we just kind of hit it off. And from the very beginning, it just felt like we were friends for a very long time. And I'm just so blessed that you were at the same event that I was at, and we got to really, truly be friends. So while we were talking, Judy was sharing a trauma that happened with her son. And that is the basis of this podcast when we're talking with Judy. So, Judy, would you be willing to share with us the trauma that happened with your son, Jeffrey?
Yes, I will. And I thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. And hopefully my experiences will resonate with some of your other listeners and hopefully help them in the long run in the future. So what happened was it was a regular school day. This was 32 years ago. And I had 3 children and was pregnant with my 4th. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time and not having a good pregnancy, very ill. And my 4-year-old said to me, I'm going to go outside and ride my bike and wait for Heather and Joey to come home, his older brother and sister. I said, okay. When they come home, they'll come in and change and play with you. So I was in the bathroom. I wasn't feeling well. I was probably vomiting. I don't even remember, but I know that I was very sick that day. It was not an easy pregnancy from the very beginning. Anyhow, the kids came home. They came inside. They said, we're going to have a snack and change and go out and play with Jeffrey. And the next thing I knew, there was very hard, wild knocking at my back door. And I couldn't imagine what that was. And I went, and there's these young teenage boys standing there saying, your son is stuck under the garage door. And I looked, and there was Jeffrey, face down, with a garage door across the back of his chest, his back, across the back, just below his shoulders. and blue. He was totally blue. I've heard that expression before when people lose their breath and they turn blue. He was literally blue. And the garage door was stuck. We couldn't get it up. I tried the auxiliary chain to see if we could pop it open. It was an electric garage door, and it was very heavy. So these young teenagers pulled up on the door as hard as they could while I slid him out. I carried him in, laid him on the kitchen table, and did CPR on Jeffrey. And one of the teenagers quickly called 911. I had another one of the teenagers take the other two children because they were totally distraught across the street to a neighbor. And after doing CPR for a minute or two, he started coughing and moving around a little bit. And just when that happened, the EMS folks came in and took over and took him immediately to the hospital. It was very, very traumatic to see your little one lying under a garage door and being helpless to pull him out. But somehow I had the wherewithal, and I remembered CPR from high school to do that for Jeffrey. So he went to the local hospital nearby. They said, we can't help him. We need to send him to a pediatric intensive care right away where they treat brain trauma. So he was airlifted by helicopter to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where there was Mott's Children's Hospital. And we followed in the car. Now, I have the blessing of having a huge family, all loving and very supportive. And as soon as word got out that Jeffrey was in the hospital, this was while he was still at the hospital locally near our home, probably 20 people showed up to see what was going on and to see what they could do to help. So literally, as Jeffrey was airlifted to the hospital, there was a caravan of probably 5 or 6 cars that went out to Ann Arbor. Took us about 45 minutes or an hour to get out there. And they were already working on Jeffrey by the time we had arrived. So it was a whirlwind from there. I barely remember those first few hours at Mott Hospital. They wouldn't really let us in to see him. They were all working on him, tons of tests. Of course, they put an IV and about, I'm going to say 5 or 6 hours later, this is now probably 10 or 11 at night, the doctors came out to talk to us and they said, we're not sure what's going to happen. Most likely your son will die or he'll have a severe brain injury. And my husband and I said, whoa, I mean, we weren't quite expecting that because he was breathing when they took him, right, in the helicopter, he was breathing. And he was a little bit combative, which showed he had lost some brain cells and he had a loss of oxygen. But we were just beyond shocked. I mean, I'm getting a lump in my throat just thinking about it right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
oh, God.
A lot of testing went on. One neurologist came into the room and pinched his shoulder real hard and said, Jeffrey, what's your name? Or he said, what's your name? And Jeffrey answered Jeffrey. So right away I'm thinking, okay, he's okay. Everything's going to be fine. He knows who he is. He's moving his arms and legs. He's going to be okay. But apparently in the loss of oxygen scenarios, brain cells die off slowly. And they were still dying off. So as the days went on, he lost more and more and more function. So first he couldn't swallow, and then he couldn't talk at all, and then he couldn't walk, and then his limbs started becoming dystonic where they would just get stuck. The muscles would freeze, and he couldn't move, and he would scream in pain because his muscles were stuck. And it was excruciating to see him like that. And
oh my goodness, I can't imagine. Judy, can I just ask you a question in this? So how much time has gone by when this is happening, when his muscles are starting to freeze and he's not swallowing?
This is over probably the first week he was in ICU. I'm going to say 5 or 6 days later, we started noticing the loss of function in his body.
Okay. Oh, and how are
So
you doing when this is happening with you? How are you? Are you just so much in a state of shock that you just
we,
don't? It's yeah.
yeah, we were both in shock. We had, thankfully enough help for our other children to, take care of them, get them to school, do what they needed. But it was extremely traumatic. I was having a tough pregnancy anyways, and it felt the whole time like someone had literally kicked me in the stomach. And I really just wanted to wake up. I wanted to walk away, and I wanted all this to go away, and I wanted to go back home and just play with my kids and have everything normal. Of course, that's what happens when you have a trauma. You can't turn back. You can't go back anymore. So it was a very, very difficult time. My husband, we stayed in Ann Arbor for about 2 weeks. We got a hotel room, and we didn't leave Jeffrey. We took turns at his side, and they wouldn't let anybody else in the room in ICU to see him. But a lot of family and friends came into the waiting room and brought food and kept us company and that kind of thing. And again, so thankful for a big family, a big loving family. It really made a difference then. And then Jeffrey was breathing on his own, and there was nothing else they could do for him in ICU. They ran batteries of tests, EEGs and EKGs, and trying to see what damage. They did swallow tests to see if he could eat on his own, all kinds of things, test after test after test. And his condition continued to worsen over the next 2 weeks. So finally, they moved him out of ICU into a regular room. There were 6 other kids in the unit, so a lot of moms and babies and children in there that all supportive of each other, all looking at the other children saying, oh, maybe this isn't so bad. Look what's wrong with this poor child. So forged a lot of friendships, in a time of distraught for not only me, but the other parents that were there in the room with Jeffrey. And then we came up with a schedule because we did have 2 other children that I would get them off to school in the morning and go to the hospital, and Frank would come after work and stay there all night with him. And then we would repeat that every day. And then Saturdays and Sundays, we had a little bit of a break when family came to stay with Jeffrey in the hospital, and we might, have a break, go home, do something with our other kids. I had doctor's appointments and things because I was pregnant. So I was really also the whole time, Jeffrey, he was in the hospital for 3.5 months in Ann Arbor, and we lived about 40 minutes away. Wow. So I was really concerned about the baby, my baby in utero, because I was going through all this terrible stress. I kept asking the doctors. They all said, baby's going to be fine. We didn't know it was a girl at the time. They just said, baby's going to be fine. Baby's not going to remember. Baby's not going to know. You're going to love the baby. Everything will be okay. Yeah. And my other 2 children and Frank were all also experiencing severe trauma about this. We all blamed ourselves. The older kid said, oh, we should have brought him in with us when we went to eat. I said, oh my God, I shouldn't have let him out there by himself. Oh my gosh. The guilt that all of us felt. Frank said, I knew that garage door was too heavy. I shouldn't have allowed that. He's a builder. He built the home. All of us blamed ourselves. So the guilt and the trauma was overwhelming for our family. And it was just a miserable, horrible thing that I would never wish any family ever had to go through. Oh my God. So after about 3.5 months, the doctors said to us, there's really nothing more we can do for Jeffrey. They tried a lot of medications. Honestly, before we left the hospital, I asked them to wean him off everything. The side effects of the medications were causing so many problems for him. And then they would give him more medications to combat the side effects from the first medications, and it was a vicious circle, and none of them were showing or offering any improvement. So before we left the hospital, he was weaned off of everything. And then getting home, it was just intense therapy for him. 4 or 5 days a week driving back to Ann Arbor with him. getting him fitted for wheelchairs and braces on his legs. And it was like my Jeffrey, my 4-year-old son that I knew died. And I